And the sun is shining and the pit lane is about to open. Welcome to Brands Hatch. Welcome to the opening round of the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe powered by AWS Sprint Cup. It is the first of 5 events with, of course, the double-header race format, 2 one-hour races. And they've had the free practice period earlier on. Now the ante is up a little bit for this pre-qualifying 60 minutes where the 26-strong field are going to be out on track. And Brands Hatch is pretty busy for a qualifying day because Valentino Rossi makes his Brands Hatch debut, whether it's on 4 wheels or 2. And there are lots of motorbike fans taking this opportunity, the one opportunity all season, to see the great man in action in the UK. And we expect many, many more tomorrow indeed to come and cheer him on. It'll be a sea of yellow around the Kent countryside. Temperature has gone up since we had free practice this morning. David Addison and John Watson trackside at John, a great old circuit.
Indeed it is, one of the favourites, I think, of drivers and fans in particular. If you look at what we call the Indy circuit, this is the Grand Prix circuit, you've got this natural amphitheatre or bowl, and with the Valentino Rossi factor, you can barely walk from the pit lane all the way up to the staggering heights of the commentary booth without bumping into a T-shirt with 46 all over it. And it actually has warmed up, David. Yes. You may have noticed you've actually got your jacket off. It is actually a very heady 10 Celsius.
I'm delighted to be able to say that Brands Hatch is warmer than Imola, because when we were there for the Endurance Cup opener, it was a bit Arctic. But yeah, the sun is shining, and although there's a bit of a breeze, we are certainly looking forward to increased temperatures on a partly resurfaced circuit, which has not yet had any wet running. We hope we don't have any this weekend either, but that resurfacing is anticipated to make circuit quicker, and therefore lap times come down.
One would think so, because when you put a new surface down, and the fact is that the weather has been unbelievably rain-free for the last month. We believe that there's been no rain here at Brands Hatch for a considerable time, certainly not since the new track has been laid. So you've got fresh virgin racetrack, which normally gives up a lot more grip. Once it gets older, then it settles back down and it becomes more consistent, more continuous. So lap times, we would anticipate the 1:22.0 we saw this morning set by Raffaele Marcello. What a surprise. One would anticipate that being. With fresh rubber, maybe a simulated qualifying run, you never know. Could be into the high 120s or certainly a low 121.
Well, the pit lane is going to be open shortly to release the cars for this session. The fast lane is open, and we await then to see what the times will be. Now, if it is warmer, is that going to have an effect? A 1:22.037 is the benchmark. Last year, wind came between Audi and Mercedes, but it was looking very Mercedes at the end of free practice. The top 3 cars all being from the Acodis ASP team of Raffaele Marciello, then Jules Gounon and Thomas Drouet being the drivers that set the times. Looking at the back there of the number 46 Audi, Valentino Rossi was done for speeding, wasn't he, in the pit lane this morning? Second time. Yeah. Got done in Imola. Yeah. And then he's been done here as well, €400 fine. I mean, that'll make a big dent on Valentino's bank account, I can assure you of that. Anyway, it's the bigger concern are the behavioural warning points, because if you get 3 of them, that's a 5-place grid drop. Yes, and I think he is aware that little details like pit lane speed limit button or whatever you want to call it must not be released until you've crossed the demarcation line at the end of the pit lane, or it has to be depressed before you cross the demarcation line entering the pit lane. Whatever it is, he doesn't want, the money's of no object whatsoever, but the penalty would be not just a penalty to him, it's a penalty to the team, and then that starts to hurt. Green flag is shown. Alex Malikin should be on board number 78. I say should because he wasn't feeling very well this morning, so hopefully he will now be able to go onto the circuit for the first time. He missed the free practice session. So out they come. Again, this doesn't affect the grid unless anything were to happen later in the day that meant that qualifying couldn't run, and we had that at Kyalami for the Intercontinental GT Challenge at the end of last year. But ordinarily, of course, we will get to the qualifying session, and this is, depending on how you want to call it, free practice 2. But because it's got the word qualifying in the title, it does have that ability to set a grid just in case you couldn't do that at the end of the day. Jim Pla looks on. Jules Gounon has gone out in 88 Mercedes, a car that Jules was telling me after the first session is a new car because last year's equivalent chassis was crashed, but this isn't quite right. And when they brake, it pulls to the left. So they're having to aim right because when they brake, so it will drift back towards the other side of the road. Neither of them very comfortable in the car.
Not a nice experience, especially on an old school, virtually, you might call it a road racetrack. Now, in the good old days, when you used to have a thing called the circumference of a tyre, and you had to, let's say, blow one tyre up on the rear, particularly higher than the other side, to get equal radius on the tyres. But I can't imagine that's the case today, so I would assume it's an issue within the car setup. And look, a team of the scale that we're seeing here from ASP, they would no doubt know what the issue is and no doubt deal with it in the period we've had since last on track.
Well, there over the timing line goes the number 33 Audi that Christopher Mies is behind the wheel of. He didn't do very many laps in the earlier session. This is the car that he shares at WRT with Jean-Baptiste Simonal, the Porsche expert. Christopher Mies, who's won pretty much everything there is to win, really, in GT terms, turns his way out of Druids.
He didn't do a huge number of laps, but the laps that he did enabled his car to be the quickest of all the Audis here. So he ended up being fourth quickest, just fraction, about 0.3 of a second down on the overall quickest time again by Raffaele Marcello. Christopher Mies, okay, it's purple, his first flying lap, first sector. Undoubtedly that will be improved upon as the session continues on. But now it has been already been, he's only gone green in the first sector, the purple has gone to Matteo Drudi.
Okay, somebody else we might need to keep an eye on in the number 38 McLaren is Rob Bell. Largely because it's his birthday, and a good present would be pole position at the end of the afternoon, wouldn't it? But Christopher Mies then accelerates up the hill, and so far so good, because not only does it look quick, but he had, up till this point, been able to steer away from the traffic.
Oh, Christopher Mies on it, hard, coming through Sheen Curve. He ran right to the very limit. He's getting caught up in traffic. He's got purple middle sector. Whether the Benjamin Gotha Audi directly ahead is going to come into play, it's marginal, but it will be a good time from Christopher Mies. 1:23.9.
Puts him top. Thomas Neubauer in the Rofco car, second fastest. Vincent Voss with Yves Wirtz nearest to us, Charles' father. Vincent has one of his high-protein biscuits, or whatever they are.
Ginger snaps.
Is that what it is?
Well, the equivalent Belgian version.
Yeah, indeed, yes. Yes, Ginger Snaps is definitely not Vincent's nickname, I promise you. But Dries van Thorn nearest to us now watches where his car is, and Charles Wirtz behind the wheel of it, yet to do a lap time. Right, this, for Santalok, number 25, is the Aurélien Panis Patrick Niederhauser entry, and it is, at the moment, being hustled on by Patrick Niederhauser. I don't think we saw very much of it in free practice this morning. It was on the track, but Patrick Niederhauser goes through, goes fifth fastest.
Right.
Oh, and very wide.
Well, very wide indeed, with a gravel crossing there. In fact, right now, the top 7 cars is an Audi, well, it's like looking at your Audi showroom.
Yeah.
Audi's from 1st to 7th, but wait and see. We're waiting for the 89 Raffaele Marcello car to come out, the 88 Jules Gounon Mercedes to come out, and which of the Mercedes is that?
Casper Stevenson's ASP entry, 87.
Got it wrong coming out of Hawthorns.
Yeah.
Runs wide.
Whoa.
And lucky that there hasn't been any rain, because and up again at Sheen Curve, is that the 93 Tempesta Mercedes?
I think so, yeah. But now, had that been wet grass, he'd have kept on sliding and hit
Correct.
something, wouldn't he? Yeah.
Couldn't get it out quick enough.
Chris Froggatt was the other one on the grass in the Sky Tempesta car, as John rightly identified. Right, Raffaele Marciello, Jules Gounon, the top 2. Mercedes, that's the order. And Raffaele in 89 there goes through the shot. And he's looking good up front.
And that's just under 0.3 of a second quicker on effectively his first flying lap than he achieved in that one, or the 30-minute session that he was involved in earlier this morning. So there is the maestro behind the wheel of the Mercedes, 1:21.889.
And he's backed off, hasn't he? He's bailed out of that lap. So for the moment, the work is done. He will hand the car to Timo Boguslavski for the bulk of this session. And Jules Gounon still working really with Jim Pla and the team to try and make sure that all is well in 88. Another car that had strife this morning was 111, Christian Kleen and Patrick Krapinski's McLaren, and that had a fairly major brake issue that involved in lots of liquid spilling out of the bottom of the car. So that at the moment is 9th, so it looks like the problem might be solved.
Interestingly, we've discussed the problems at the 88 Mercedes Jules Gounon had, and there's a replay of, that's the Benjamin Goethe Audi going off again at Sheen, or is it, no, Niederhauser?
Neubauer.
Neubauer, beg your pardon, Neubauer.
Yeah, that car, different car, yeah.
So Boguslawski getting himself ready. But Jules Gounon, as much of the problem of the car, he was still just a fraction under 2/10 away from Marciello. They were second quickest, so it's all in relative terms a relative issue, but they don't seem to, as of yet, got a time in 1:23.314 against a 1:21.8, so 1.75 seconds away. Early days.
Indeed so. Raffaele Marciello has done another absolute best in the first sector. He might even bail at the end of the lap because Timo Boguslawski is getting ready. 86 going through here is another of the Acodis ASP cars of Igor Walilko. Second fastest at the moment is Walilko, but I'm not necessarily convinced that car's going to stay there. But Marciello, having done an absolute best in the first sector, may, as I say, decide that this is the end of it. But Walilko is looking good. 2 personal bests.
Very good, very good. I mean, okay, a 1:23.1 is 1.2 seconds down on Marciello's existing lap time, but he's got personal best first and second sector, so it will be a significant improvement.
Yeah, narrows it to 9/10.
Yeah.
Narrows that margin. Raffaele Marciello did stay out. Dean McDonald's McLaren is now third. Fourth quickest Christopher Meese's Audi. Fifth fastest Patrick Niederhauser's Audi. And that's Jim Pla watching on, but not with vast amounts of enthusiasm. So maybe the message coming back from Jules Gounon is that the car's still a bit of a diva.
Well, the car certainly hasn't performed. I mean, in relation to what he did this morning, he did a 1:22.2 this morning, or the car did. Right now, they're a full second away from that time.
Now, before you ask, 46 is on the circuit, but it's Fred Verviche at the wheel of it. So Valentino Rossi in the garage, Fred Verviche 9th fastest. Dean McDonald, I mentioned, was third. He's now down to 4th, courtesy of Patrick Niederhauser. And the McLaren going really quickly in the hands of the young Scottish driver. This is the car that he shares with Miguel Ramos, who put it in the gravel right at the end of free practice this morning.
Very spectacularly too at the entrance, not the exit, the entrance into Paddock Hill Bend. So Dean McDonald comes through to complete that personal best first sector. No significant change. The middle sector was 4th, stays 4th. But Christopher Meese, personal best first and second sectors. Here is the Audi.
So over the line goes Christopher Meese. A 1:23.075 puts him up to 4th fastest. So the best time that we had this morning was a 22.0. We've already nailed that with a 21.8, courtesy of Raffaele Marciello, as their tyres are changed on the Attempto Audi. The car is dropped down, and away goes Peter Skoghorst. I think that Jean-Baptiste Simonauer is about to get on board at WRT. So driver rotation starts. JB Sim, Jean-Baptiste Simonauer. Interesting, isn't it, that a number of teams this time have sent the so-called pro, the gun, the more experienced driver, label him as you wish, out first, and having set a benchmark, then you give the car over to the other driver to do perhaps more of the session.
And certainly that's the case with the 89 Mercedes Marciello, as opposed to the 86 has done likewise, a really, really good time within 9/10 of a second. So Walilko.
I was going Walilko.
Yeah. Okay. Somebody's again kicked up the dust exit of Sheen curve. I don't know which car it is. We might get a glimpse of it. It's already out of sight, gone through clearways, or it's going into clearways now into Clark Curve. So Klaus Bachler, disappointing this morning.
I was about to say, yes, and he's coming into the pits now, but neither of the two Porsches seemed to really come alive, did they, in that early session?
No, and rather unexpectedly. So there's Fred Verviche coming in, having completed his run. Currently 7th quickest on a 1:23.218, 1.3 seconds away from provisional quickest time. Still stands to the 89 Mercedes Raffaele Marciello.
By proxy, I suspect Fred is becoming a very popular man, because you know Valentino Rossi, so we'll get your autograph now. But into the WRT parking lot he comes.
Look how tight it is to get a car in. You can't really get the car in as close to your box as you like. You're coming in at an angle. They're going to put the dollies under the car, rotate it around. May not necessarily put it back into the garage. Fred Ravish looks like he's about to vacate the car. Yeah, so, oh, is he? Well, no, he did undo the belts. He's now redoing the belts up.
Interesting. So change of whatever the plan was. I think I mentioned it was Rob Bell's birthday today. It's also Timur Boguslavski's birthday today.
Yeah, a lot of people are born in May.
Yeah, it's a good month.
It isn't May yet. It's May tomorrow.
Well, Patrick Niederhauser has boxed, if that's a verb, and he will give the Santa Lock entry over number 25 to Aurélien Panis, Olivier Panis' son. Matteo Drudi has just put number 12 Audi up to second. This is the car that he shares, the car collection car, with Luca Giotto. So it is Mercedes Audi at the moment.
There is Matteo Drudi, and he's now got his Audi within 0.6 of a second. And no, he'll be happy with that. It's a good performance. That's the way you exit out of Hawthorns. Run it right to the very, very edge of that curb, and then bring it back before the curb drops off, and then you've got loads of lovely, well, it is dry grass here. Unexpectedly dry, I must say, with the very generous high pressure weather pattern we've had over the United Kingdom for the last number of weeks. Timur Boguslavski now has taken over the steering wheel of the 89 Mercedes. Raffaele Marcello has done what he needed to do. I suspect he might get back in again before the session concludes.
We did a little while ago see Chris Froggatt on the grass in that Sky Tempesta Mercedes. It has now pitted, but that car was having gearbox dramas this morning, so really they lost the bulk of that hour of the session, didn't they?
They did. The issue appears that the sort of what you might call the seamless shift to make either downshifts, but more maybe, well, probably wasn't a downshift. They had to come completely off the throttle, whatever the system was doing. It hadn't been correctly calibrated. They had had an engine change, so it needed to be recalibrated. Whether they've succeeded in achieving that, well, we'll find out more later on.
Indeed so. So it is, at the moment, this car of Matteo Drudi, which is second fastest. Car Collection, the team that operates the cars, a good track record in things like the old VLN, now the NLS, the Nordschleife Long Distance Series, and again a regular in the Nürburgring 24 Hours, but coming into World Challenge Europe this year and looked at Imola and again here as though the team belongs. Might not have the experience within this isolated championship, but they're doing a good job.
A very good job. I mean, they've got a great turnkey race car, and as it turned out, Audi was a circuit that seemed to suit very well the circumstances of Imola. And again, normally one would assume, you know, the balance between Audi and Mercedes is almost nip and tuck. So Audi again right at the very sharp end of this 1 hour session. With 15 minutes into it already.
Traffic ahead, as you see there, the McLaren coming out of Graham Hill Bend. It was Rob Bell that started the session in that car, and it is still Rob Bell in that car. 22nd, that, well, it says Rob Bell is driving it, but let's find out, because Gemma is down in the McLaren garage.
Rob, first of all, happy birthday. But aside from that, of course, tough start to the weekend for you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much. Another year younger. Yeah, we sort of trying to adapt to. We got a new tyre this year. We got new surface at this circuit as well, and just so far we're not quite getting our heads around it and getting the best out of what we've got. So we're working hard. We're looking at it, and I've got no doubt the pace is there, and that's the encouraging thing. You know, if you've got a car that you're not quite on the pace with, but you're very happy with it, that's when you're really struggling. At least we have identified areas we've got to work on, and I'm sure during the course of the weekend we'll improve.
You mentioned there some of the resurfacing, and I've heard reports that some people are finding they're bottoming out a little bit. Are you struggling at all with that?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the new surface is clearly faster, but there's obviously probably some bumps where there weren't any bumps, and some bumps have disappeared completely. So it's all part of the learning process. You know, these circuits are always evolving, and you just got to make the best of what you've got. And yeah, we're all in the same boat. It's not a problem. Just we've got to improve.
All you can do is keep trying, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we will. We've got a good team around us, great car. So, yeah, between us all, we'll pull our finger out and work it all out.
You were certainly quick here last year, and until things didn't quite go according to plan then, but I'm sure you'll get there. Thanks a lot, Rob.
Absolutely, thank you.
What that has also done is kickstart the car's transponder, because it is confirming Ollie Wilkinson is now behind the wheel of it. So birthday boy Bell wanders off and goes to have a look at that car being 22nd, and a yellow flag has come out in the first sector. So somebody has had a moment somewhere in sector 1.
It's hard to see. There it is. Oh, and that is going to be a delay, because the tyre bales have been clearly dislodged, and hopefully, when the dust settles, we can't even recognise which car it is. It's an Audi of some description, but it's a red flag, which is, I think, appropriate. Just interesting, while all that was about to unfold, Charles Verts managed to get his 32 Audi up into second place, just 0.3 of a second behind the 89 Mercedes.
Right, we'll try and piece all this together, but even trying to peer out of our window.
Nicholas Schürrle.
Oh, it is, number 99, yes, the Attempto car. Nicholas Schürrle, you're quite right. And he seemed to go off at very high speed without being able to turn.
Well, it was very similar to what we saw Miguel Ramos doing in the McLaren. Again, going off in relative terms early into Paddock Hill Bend. Quite why that's the case. 2 cars doing it, there's got to be a reason. 1 car doing it, you could put it down to maybe just it was an issue of a driver, but 2 cars going off in rather similar circumstances, that's something that might need an explanation.
I have a recollection of Lamborghinis going off there a few years ago and one ending up upside down, the Diego Menchaca accident when he drove for the FFF team. So it is a part of the circuit that does catch out people, but it also now brings out this red flag. Now, because this is only pre-qualifying, the clock is carrying on ticking. So this, for the teams, eats into the available time.
One would assume, looking at the way the tyres were dislodged, those are tyre bales that are attached. You know, there's a common attachment all the way through. So it might take 10 minutes or more to clear all that. So that will bring us down to about 30 minutes or so remaining in the session.
So that was Mattia Drudi almost being clipped by the car there as it swung around. And it is at Paddock Hill Bend that the car has gone off, and the red flag out due to Nicholas Schürrle being off. But in terms of speed going into Paddock Hill Bend, it is Patrick Niederhauser, and this gives you an idea of perhaps why they go off, because they arrive there so quickly. 165 kilometres an hour into Paddock Hill Bend in the Audi. Charles Weert's the second fastest, or bravest if you prefer, 161 kilometres an hour. Then Casper Stevenson and Jules Gounon in the Mercedes, and Christopher Hauser's Audi, the 5th fastest in a speed.
Looking, David, at the image of the entry into Paddock Hill Bend, this is now a new surface we're looking at. So people are coming in and hanging on the left-hand side. Maybe because that part of the racetrack is not the part that's being used, there isn't the level of grip. Maybe it's got some just new surface that is yet to be scuffed. And arguably, once you get onto that, then the front of the car just has nothing to bite. All you're doing is sitting there, a passenger, unable to do anything to prevent what we've just seen happen to the Audi.
There's the Barwell Lamborghini, which so far is being shown only as having had Ben Barker behind the wheel of it today, although we were told, or it was hoped, that Alex Malikin would be able to take part in this session. The restart 4 minutes away, but that's to be confirmed.
That's pretty quick work to get that car removed, but also to get the tyre bales back and secured in position.
Yeah.
That is impressive work by the MSV circuit staff, so good, well done to them.
So the rest of the cars come to the pit lane, and there you can see how crowded it is if you've got a whole fleet of them. Ben Barker has been looking after brakes, bedding in new brakes, we understand, at Barwell, and that car, therefore, we've not really seen the best of. But again, it isn't all about the ultimate time, so it's more to do with setup and giving drivers the mileage. Right, so we're not too far, we hope, away from the resumption of this session, with 1 minute 21.889, the Raffaele March yellow time being the target. There is Valentino Rossi leaning into the car to talk to Fred Vervish. So he's still not having a go, is he? Still not been given his driving time.
He's had a lot of driving time, I gather. He's had about 10 days, actually, time in a car, not at a racetrack, not at a race meeting, but he has had quite a lot of time to learn the subtleties and the what it is like to drive a race car. There's a production race car altered for race conditions, as opposed to what his whole life has been sent virtually on two wheels with the occasional foray into a bit of rallying and the occasional GT3 race as well.
I'm not quite sure why this Porsche has been allowed out, because we are still under red flag conditions. So, slightly quirkily, 56 is on the circuit, but we are not yet live.
Maybe, again, it was caught, I don't know, it could have been that it was caught literally at pit lane exit, and yeah. They were just getting confirmed that, in fact, that was the case. It was just he was caught at the worst possible place as he was about to rejoin the circuit, so he's been given the nod to make a slow lap back into the pit lane. So nothing untoward.
So he'll have to possibly take the shortcut through the Indy circuit, which he does. So this brings the car back to the team as we await the resumption of the session. Right, Jules Gounon wasn't very happy after free practice this morning. Is he any happier now with the 88 Mercedes?
Surely you're getting to enjoy our British tracks at the moment after your outing with British GT recently at Alden Park. Things are looking a little bit of a struggle today?
No, we are still on old tires where they put new tires in the front, so hopefully I'm not 1.1 second off. I would not like that in quali, but we are working on the setup. Then later on Jim will put new tires before quali, and you know it's a very compact day. We start FP1, FP2 quali, so we need to be on point straight away. I think the car is feeling quite good, so let's see when we put the tire where we are at, but British weather, nice track, nice sun, so all good.
How are you enjoying where it's been resurfaced? Looking up in turn one here, are there any difficulties?
Well, now that we have more grip now, so I think that's why also the lap time has improved so much, because there is a lot of grip in T1, T3 also especially. So it's a bit different on the setup. We have to rebalance a bit the car, but it's feeling nice and fast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Jules Gounon, who is becoming proficient at British circuits, we just now need to teach him corner names. T1 is Paddock Jules, T3 is Graham Hill Bend, but in racing driver speak, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3.
I mean, in common motor racing parlance, corners are really recognised by numbers now, not by names. I mean, all the names here at Brands Hatch are all the great names of the great motorcyclists and racing drivers of the day. You've got Derek Minter Strait, you've got Hawthorns after Mike Hawthorn, you've got John Surtees, McLaren, Jim Clark, Jack Brabham, a racing driver called Paddock Hill. I never heard of him before. I've heard of, you know, there's Graham Hill, obviously. We've got a Graham Hill here. And of course, Phil Hill, the first American world champion, but I never heard of a driver called Paddock Hill.
Where's Watson's? Which circuit is? Do you have a corner at?
Silverstone. Every corner is called Watson at Silverstone. That's my BRDC membership.
Up the whatever.
Exactly.
Yes, yes. Now then, the cars are going down to the end of the pit lane, he says, battling towards the plot again, because the session is going to go live in 15 seconds, and it will give us 35 minutes, give or take. But the fast lane is open, so the car's being allowed down the pit road. The restart was due at 12:49. It's now just been nudged back to 12:50. It's just taking a little bit longer to sort this than was initially the anticipation, but we're not far off. And again, you lose that track time. There's the car being brought back. It's down to the teams to make sure their drivers don't go off and cost them the track time.
Well, even, I mean, it looked a bigger off than it turned out to be, but still the car is on the back of the flatbed. It's got to be returned to the pit lane. It's just gone past one of the access roads, so it'll again go all the way down just to the entrance into Surtees. But instead of turning left, the flatbed truck will turn right and bring it back into the pit lane and deposit the car. Whether it does it at the back of the pits or actually in the pit lane, I'm not sure. But until that happens, well, maybe not. Maybe the car will not be brought into the pit lane because it's outside assistance.
Yeah. Either way, I think the pit lane might have to clear before that can come down. But anyway, it is off the circuit, and therefore the green flag is waved. So we are back in business, and everybody goes thundering out with 35 minutes just under now on that clock. I know we say it so regularly, it almost becomes a cliche, but a GT field with different shapes and sizes and different sounds is just something to savour, and especially on a circuit like this that goes through the countryside, that has all the undulations to it. These cars around this kind of circuit just look brilliant.
Well, they're physically large cars. They're very, very evenly matched, and visually, it's a feast. And I mean, this is when Brands Hatch, to me, in terms of car racing, is at its best.
Well, there is Christian Kleen ready to go in the McLaren. That's Christian Engelhardt due to take out 54, the Dynamic Motorsports Porsche. But Mercedes right now having a very good day. Fastest in free practice and topping the times provisionally within this pre-qualifying session.
So Fred, I'm just looking to see, we saw the 46 idea there, Charles Verts, in the 32, second quickest car. Oh, what? Okay.
So this is the view coming out of Clark Curve. This is the view up towards the timing line. And you are riding with Dries van Thor. He breaks the beam now onto a flying lap. Let's ride with him.
Onto the new tarmac. Gets the nose in. It's a late apex into Pedicle Bend. The compression at the bottom, maybe there's a bit of bottoming out, up the hill, then an early entry into Druids, my preferred line. Thank you, Dries, you got it absolutely wheel perfect. Down the hill now, always difficult braking again, watch that new surface. Out of Graham Hill Bend, you run wide, don't be over greedy, you'll be penalised. The short sprint down into Surtees. This corner is a key corner in the lap because it leads on to the fastest part of the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, all the way up to just around about 240 kilometers per hour before you lift off down one gear, stick the nose in, and well, where's his apex? I didn't see the apex, Dries. Where was it? Then on the brakes again into Westfield Bend. Used to be very bumpy there, seems to be not quite so bad. Then the dip and the compression in Dingadale. Up the hill, again looking for the apex at Sheen. Run it out to the very edge, then back on the brakes into Stirling's. Down 3 gears. Run the curve on the exit. Be careful, don't be greedy because that'll catch you out. Then the short sprint down into the beginning of Clearways Clark Complex. Lovely corner, let the car float out to the exit, then come back for Clark's. Get it as straight as possible to maximise your straight line speed over the start finish line now and back into Pedicle Bend.
And having done that lap, he is coming up to the traffic. That was a 23.9, so not his absolute best. So there's more to come if the traffic allows.
Being as close to another car is not going to aid your natural pace. You're having to watch that car with one eye. You've got to watch what you're doing with the other eye. It's a distraction. Ideally, if I was in Dries van Thor's position, I wouldn't necessarily want to push that hard. There is the 46. So it's Fred Vervisch behind the wheel, still waiting to see Valentino Rossi out for the second time here today at Brands Hatch.
And the car currently is 10th fastest. How much of this do you think is Vervisch working on setup to say to Valentino, right, that car should now be absolutely ideal, off you go?
There'll be an element of that. Again, it'll depend on the tyres that they're running because look, you've got a limited number of tyres for the weekend. You want to save the new tyres as much as possible for qualifying. Now, I have no doubt that this car will go on to a virtual new set or a brand new set of tyres at the end. Fred Vervisch looks to stick the nose up the inside, but just no way. But how much more speed was he carrying? The Audi then stays over on the right and it's going into the pit lane. So, in fact, it's not. It's pulled over to the right and it's going to have another go. But Fred Vervisch wants to maximise as much as possible, but losing time coming through the exit of Sheen and into Stirling's. So he ends up going quicker and ends up actually going 5th quickest on 1:22.6. Had it not been for that marginal compromise, that could have been actually 4th quickest.
So there's a bit more to come maybe from that car as Pierre-Alexandre Jean puts his Ferrari 3rd. Luca Giotto now goes 4th. Understeer is to blame, we understand, for Nicolas Schurl's demise. Nothing more than that, just understeer as Valentino Rossi is ready to go. Look, so suited and booted. He looks at the data and Fred Vervisch has put the car 5th, but it won't be long before the great man is behind the wheel.
Remember when he was a motorcyclist, he used to kneel down and put his hands behind his head and almost in as if he was, I shouldn't say praying, but it was just a ritual he had. Now, I don't believe he does the same before he gets into the wheel of his number 46 Audi.
Pierre-Alexandre Jean has been an absolute star today, and he's gone 3rd fastest in this session. He was 5th in the earlier session, so the Ferrari number 53, these two ex-Bentley boys, if you like, Pierre-Alexandre Jean and Ulysse de Pauw. We saw them in the CMR privately run Bentley last year when it was a little bit long in the tooth, but in the Ferrari, run by one of the best, if not the best, Ferrari teams. A little bit of a twitch in Surtees, but these two are absolutely flying.
I mean, he is leaving nothing on the table. Getting a slide like that coming through the exit of Surtees, he was on the throttle so early to get the maximum drive he could. Now, he lost, as a consequence, a fraction of a second. And again, not running out to the very, very edge of the racetrack coming through Hawthorns. So he was personal best in Sector 1. I suspect this lap he may be just thinking, well, I've lost a bit of time on Surtees. I didn't maximise on Hawthorns. So this is not going to be a lap that's going to see an improvement. Sector time, you can see 1.6 seconds down. So he just has marginally backed out of it, weaving around, trying to get more temperature in the tires, reset and go again.
So here he comes with a relatively clear road. In fact, the pit straight is absolutely devoid of traffic. So Pierre-Alexandre Jean goes through and stays third fastest. That lap actually was still a decent one, a 23.7, but not as good as it could have been. So now, if the road remains clear, let's see what progress can be made. But the AF Corsa Ferrari looking good. We aren't blessed with too many Ferraris. We've only got 3 of them in total, but it's really good to have this one now taking the fight to both Audi and Mercedes.
And it's interesting how these 2 young drivers, having come from a Bentley, having served their time in the Bentley over the past 2 seasons, now in an entirely different car. You couldn't have a more diametrically different kind of configuration, but loving what Ferrari is giving them.
They're both Silver Cup drivers, so it's a Silver Cup entry. As to the pit lane, WRT comes the Dries van Thor Charles Weert's car, but also significantly behind in comes the number 46 Audi, and that means that Fred Verviche will hop out, and Valentino Rossi quickly gets in.
There doesn't appear to be any changes taking place in terms of change of rubber. So the tyres that Verviche has run his sequence of laps on is the set of tyres that Valentino is going to go out. So pull those shoulder straps down tight, make sure all the connections are made. Then the car will come off jacks and then it will roll down the pit lane. And we'll get yet another glimpse of the maestro behind the wheel. Well, he was a maestro on a motorbike.
He was.
He's yet to become a maestro behind. Well, the car now is being rotated, is going to go into the garage. Are they going to change that set of wheels and tyres? Nice to see if they did.
Yeah, I'm just peering out of the window, but the car's hidden away as the McLaren heads here up towards the timing line. 188. Miguel Ramos was in the gravel in this car at the end of free practice. Dean McDonald, his co-driver, watching all of this, and the car is 13th, and Dean in the pits is with Gemma Scott.
Dean, a graduation this weekend for you from GT4 to GT3 to the European Series. How are you enjoying settling in? You looked quick out there.
Yeah, I think the first 2 sessions went well for us. It's just glad to get back in the car on a race weekend. You can't beat the feeling. But yeah, all looks good so far. I made a few changes for this one. But yeah, all looking good, can't complain.
How's the circuit feeling?
Yeah, crazy. I enjoy this track. I've not been to many of the tracks this calendar, but I was looking forward to this. When you go out the back across the curve, yeah, it's mega.
Well, it looks like you're strong for the weekend and very competitive for the season.
Yeah, I think so. I think our race pace looks quite good as well, so I think we just need to extract a little bit more from qualifying, and then, yeah, hopefully we'll be there.
Thank you very much.
And that car is in Pro-Am, which we haven't really touched on yet, but you have Pro, you have Silver and Pro-Am competitions within this championship. Everybody has the same spec of car, GT3, but then you've got these battles within the classes. And whoops, that's Jim Pla exploring what Brands Hatch has to offer.
Yep, and drags a whole load of dust and maybe a certain amount of gravel onto the curbing and maybe a little bit onto the edge of the racetrack. So those that are following will not be over impressed by Jim Pla's efforts through the exit of Paddock Bend. But, we're at the races, guys, that you get this, it occurs.
So down towards Clark Curve, Cam's 88. So now, in fact, after that element of the lap, Jim Pla bails, comes into the pits. So after that excursion, in he comes. Whether that was driver error purely, or whether it goes back to the fact that they were not comfortable this morning with the car and its handling, remains to be seen. But Jim Pla bails.
I mean, the 2 incidents we've seen at Paddock Bend, the second one was put down to understeer entering Paddock Bend. Well, that might be because if you hang out very late to make your turn, the bit of the racetrack that they're using is not as clean as the actual line that's evolving. And I just wonder whether Jim Pla was also a little bit wide on his way into Paddock Bend, and that resulted in running wide on the exit. It's all ifs and ands and buts, but we only can do the best we can do with the pictures we get. can't we, David?
Exactly so. As that car heads back to the pit road, through goes the Louis Macchiel's Andrea Bertolini Ferrari, and also there is the now Hugo Delacour Ferrari that he shares with Cedric Sprazzioli, another of the 488s. Heading now up round Druids, 24 minutes are on the clock. So the next question is, what can Valentino Rossi do? The time he's got to aim for is Fred Vervischi's 22.491. Well, he's on his first flying lap, so it'll take a while really for Valentino Rossi to get anywhere near that. Hugo Delacour there turns up through Surtees. Hugo Delacour, who drove in the European Ferrari Challenge last year. This is a massive step up for him.
Just to go back to Rossi, one of the things he will have to learn is that when you well, look at the car coming through. Oh dear me, it looks like it's not an easy car right now for the Italian. But one of the things you have to learn is when you are handed over a car, being in a pit stop or even just for practice like this, is the first lap you've got to be on it. You can't go out there and just sort of drive your way in. It's too high a game right now to do that. So that's part of what experience and learning ultimately is going to be all about.
Well, that lap that he did was a 1 minute 30, so there's a big chunk of time to find as the car now goes underneath the bridge down towards Hawthorns. You can see Valentino Rossi at work as he sets the car up, turns right. And the Skechers back down. He's sure-footed enough to run to the curb on the outside of the road, now into Westfield. You can see him hopping and skipping a little bit as he finds all the bumps onto this newly resurfaced section, and the climb now up towards Sheen Curve, Rotti.
Yeah, I mean, everything he's doing, I mean, coming through Hawthorns, through Westfield, through Sheen, everything looks really neat, precise. Look at the way he runs the curve at the exit of Stirling. I mean, just, he knows what he's doing. What he has to do is find the additional second to go with a really lovely style. And watching Valentino Rossi drive is actually, you wouldn't imagine this is only his second race. Well, he's done a couple of races in the past, but as a professional now, full-time GT3 race driver.
Well, he just found the best part of 6 seconds. That was a 1:24.5, so he is about 2 seconds now off Fred Vervischi's time, and there's more to come because the tyres are getting up to temperature, he's getting more comfortable, and with every passing lap he's able to find a bit more time. So Valentino Rossi getting closer and closer to the absolute pace at a 24.5 relative to, for example, Timur Boguslavski or a Jean-Baptiste Simonauer. You know, he's in good company, so he's certainly not disgracing himself. As you see Chris Froggatt there, 25th. And really, they're playing catch-up, having lost the bulk of this morning's session.
Yeah, and you cannot afford time. I mean, there was a relatively minor technical issue, but one which caught the team unexpectedly, so they lost virtually all of that 1 hour session. And time like that, you cannot make up.
So through he turns. Flash of the lights of the Santalock Audi behind there. Number 25 of Aurelian Panis to say I'm quicker, and Chris Froggatt gets the message, hops out of the way. You see when cars do pull offline how dusty the rest of the circuit is on that part, certainly coming out of Stirling's. But the Sky Tempesta Mercedes, and it's a new car for Chris Froggatt and Eddie Cheever, forsaking Ferrari in favour of Mercedes for this season. It's not been a happy start to the weekend for them.
So the track is getting more and more busy and finding that magic clear lap where you can actually work out for the entire, I mean, there are 9 significant corners, a couple of bits and pieces of curves which don't count as corners. To ensure that you max out on each one of those is absolutely pivotal. On board with Chris Froggatt, so on the exit out of Graham Hill Bend along Cooper Straight, then down the gears into Surtees. Yeah, well, it's all working. The gearbox is doing what it's designed to do now.
Yeah, it sounds all right. It's just that they're still playing catch-up from having to garner the data that they should have garnered in the first session of the day. We've got 20 minutes to go as Aurelian Panis pushes on, number 25. This car is 8th in the session. And towards Sheen Curve he comes, looking good in the first sector here.
Yes, personal best for the young Frenchman, and into the second sector now. So he got another green. No, he hasn't. He's lost time in that middle sector, so good first sector, disappointing middle sector. How will he complete the lap? Is he going to make any further improvement on his current 8th quickest overall? So wait and see. The line is coming now. 1:22.6 stays in 8th position.
and he's also going to encounter traffic. As you see, Ollie Wilkinson, who's done the lion's share of driving in this session, comes then out of Sterling's, kicks up a little bit of the dust there. Yeah, the car was certainly competitive last year when it was Ben Barnicoat's hands, but right now the McLaren is still only 23rd.
So it goes up to 11th, so that's a significant step forward. Ready for Dries van Thor to come across the line as we go to the Gulf. Oh, that is, I beg your pardon, it's the 32. The white sometimes in the blue of the front of the Gulf. So it comes across the line, stays in second place. Gap 0.3 of a second.
So Dries van Thor, personal best, 1:22.2. As Rob Bell gets set to have a go within the McLaren. Now there is 88. Now this car currently has who behind the wheel of it? It is Jim Pla, but it's only 17th.
Maybe a bit quicker now. Oh, a little bit quicker. Up to 7th. No, 9 to 9th, because in the space of a time saying 7th, 2 positions drop. So what's wrong with Valentino?
I think he's off the road in the gravel.
Oh, that's
he's off the road in the gravel. Yeah.
Up at Sheen, the exit of Sheen. No,
Sterling's, he spun it at Sterling's, hasn't he?
Sterling's, indeed, you're right.
Well,
so
the barriers are moved back these days. There's a bigger gravel trap.
Tell me about moving the barriers back.
So let's see what he did. The session's being stopped, but Valentino Rossi has looped it, and it's a good job that gravel trap is bigger, because otherwise that could have done some damage. But we don't see the start of it. We just see him reverse into the gravel. But does this tell us anything, John?
Turns in and watch the sudden snap oversteer. Oh, there she goes. Now, did he catch something on the inside on the entry into Sterling's, or was it already on its way before we got to the... Anyway, whatever happened, we didn't catch the initial phase of it, and there's the car in the gravel. This clock will continue to count down. It'll be another 3 or 4 minutes probably lost to retrieve the car. This ought not to need putting onto the back of a flatbed truck. If they can pull the car with a snatch vehicle, get it back on the racetrack, then I think Rossi will be able to drive it back to the pits. Then the team have got to set about clearing out the residue of the gravel that gets everywhere. It's an awful stuff to clear out of a car.
It is indeed. So this isn't quite what the Rossi fans had in mind. Christopher Haase had gone second, by the way, and pushed this car down to 5th, but it is well and truly stuck in the gravel. So frustration for all, as again the session has to be interrupted.
That's a shame the way they put up his name, B-O-G.
The short code. But
yeah.
Tibor Bog
Tim, T-I-M.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, Bog it is at the wheel of the car. Raffaele Marciello did the time, and Valentino Rossi's car being eventually retrieved. In fact, oh no, there are cars coming back, but on their own pace after the red flag. So only really when everybody's in the pit lane can the recovery vehicle be dispatched. So it does take quite a... If you're thinking it's not hit anything, why are we waiting? Well, only when the road is clear can the officials allow the recovery vehicle and the marshals to go trackside to work on that car. So this is the time-consuming bit, getting everybody under control and back into the pit lane. There you go.
So that is a significant recovery vehicle. I hope they don't need to lift it up. I thought maybe a snatch cable would have been enough to pull it out, but maybe they feel that the best way is actually to lift the car up and remove it that way, and then set it down on tarmac and let it return to the pits under its own steam.
Ollie Wilkinson had improved a little just before that red flag. Charles Weerts, number 32 Audi, 3rd. Charles, let's hear from him now.
Charles, speaking to Dries earlier on this morning, he said that you guys were struggling a little bit and had some work to do. How's the car feeling now?
Well, indeed, we still have some work to do, but I think we went in the right direction. Still some time to gain compared to the Mercedes, which is looking really strong, but we knew it was going to be. So, yeah, still some work to do, but we are definitely in the right window, I think.
Well, the team certainly know how to do the work and what needs to be done for this kind of championship. Always looking very strong, WRT.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even though it's not especially a track that suits us the best, we still, we still can handle to be in the top 5, or at least that's our target, just to score as much points as we can. And yeah, we'll still keep working and try to get closer and closer to the Mercedes.
Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
So the car of Valentino Rossi being retrieved, but unlikely that it's going to be allowed back out. So not only is that a problem that it's gone off, but they lose the remainder track time.
Yes, and principally the final maybe 10 minutes of preparation for a pre-qualifying run for certainly Valentino, maybe not for both drivers, and that would arguably be a setback. 13 minutes, a little over 13 minutes remaining, so it'll be maybe 10 minutes at best before the track is clear, before we can get back onto Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit to complete this pre-qualifying 1-hour session.
So the clock carries on ticking as we've been making the point. And at WRT, practice pit stop, you might as well do something constructive while the red flag is like this. So Benji Goethe and Thomas Neubauer do a practice driver change.
That's when it pays when you're in your early or late teens or early 20s. Jumping in and out of a race car like that is just easy peasy.
Yes.
I tried to do it in a 962 Porsche at Goodwood recently. I had to be dragged out.
Really?
Oh, dragged out of the thing. I wasn't fighting and screaming. I was delighted. So there is the 46 Audi being carefully removed from the gravel, and Valentino is still a passenger. Looks calm.
He does.
Very calm.
There's nothing he can do at this stage, though, while he is in suspended animation like this. They'll just put the car on the ground, and he can drive it back, or can he? Because they've sent the recovery vehicle out.
The recovery vehicle is certainly there. There's a replay of the conclusion of the spin up at Stirling's. So watch the hands. He's just trying to get it, and all of it was a very, very sudden snap oversteer that caught him out. We don't know no point, Valentino. You're stuck.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mamma mia! What are the fans going to think of me now?
Exactly.
They're going to love you.
On telly. So there's the car gently put down. Christopher Haase talks about life at the other Audi team, or one of the other Audi teams, Car Collection. But that car he had put second fastest. In fact, Christopher is the fastest Audi driver in this session.
He is a very, very accomplished driver. Christopher Haase, Christopher Mies, sort of old school now, almost, in terms of their years and experience within the Audi family. When you look at Dries van Thor or Charles Weerts, or some of the younger drivers that are coming into the Audi family, you can't beat a good old one.
No, that's true. Conversation between Mattia Drudi there, Luca Giotto, who is in the car, and seventh fastest this Audi is.
I wonder why he's got a telephone.
I mean, he's young. All young people always have a phone in their hand.
Is that what it is?
Yes, he'll be on Instagram in a minute.
TikTok.
That'll be it.
That's what it is, TikTok. Yeah. Instagram is for my generation.
Oh, okay.
It's TikTok. Oh, there he is, right. This is what I hope to see. No. Oh, so he's gone down the racetrack, down to Sheen, done a big loop and come back.
And now tries to shake some of the gravel out of the bottom. So, not only do we need that car in the pit lane, we need the recovery vehicles off. The fast lane is open. Alain Ardon, who is the race director, gets everybody on their toes then and says, right, get ready, chaps, because we want to give you as much of the session as we can. Valentino Rossi brings the car across the racing line, swoops in. We'll see what the reception is from his fans when he gets out of the car, but yellow car, red-faced driver, in he comes.
And remember, speed limit, Valentino.
Yes.
Easy to forget when you've got a million other things going on in your head.
Indeed.
You want to explain to your team precisely the cause of the spin. And to me, it looked like it was a very sudden snap oversteer.
Sure. So, fast lane open, restart on short notice. Basically, as soon as the recovery vehicles are off the road, we can go. The Audi has been returned to WRT. They'll make sure there's no damage to it. They'll want to know exactly why it went off, whether it was purely down to the driver. And less than 10 minutes, there is Christian Kleen and Patrick Koprinski's JB Motorsport McLaren that will go back out, one hopes. Its brake problem of this morning seems to be behind it. quite a few concerned faces around that car at the end of free practice. Didn't last very long at Imola, did it? It was wiped out quite early on in the skirmish down at Ravazza on the second lap. Green flag wave then, we're back in business.
So it's the 8, is that the 89? I think it is.
Yes.
So Raffaele Marcello appears to be once again behind the wheel, and we've got 9 minutes to go. So is this going to be a attempt at a simulation for qualifying, bearing in mind that qualifying will be later this afternoon? And coming up to now, it is coming up to just after 1:15 in the afternoon at Brands Hatch, and qualifying will commence at 10 to 4.
So, in a number of cases, they've done a driver change and put the faster driver in. That tallies with what John is predicting, that this will be a dummy run for qualifying. And qualifying is 20 minutes, 10-minute break, 20 minutes, barring any red flags, which we don't want.
Busy racetrack. Everybody's got the same intention.
So out of the right-hander of Hawthorns they come. Then Westfield, that sheen curve, and that was Marciello running a little bit ragged, kicking up the dirt through Sterling's. It's going to have to be renamed Rossi's, isn't it, now, after that?
Could be, could be. Anyway, he has got the benefit of a clear track until he might catch up. And he's coming in now. Why is he doing that? Has he got a reason for it, or is he just going out? And now the car will be brought in. Fresh set of rubber put on. Yeah. We don't know. It's all speculation.
Swap the tyres over and send him out maybe as Thomas Drouet then is 12th fastest, heading up towards Druids. Druids. And 7.5 minutes, give or take, still to run. So on this next lap, we'll start to see if anybody is able to do greens, and therefore whether we are going to be looking at quicker lap times before the very end of the session here. But Thomas Drouet down in that first sector.
Often after a stoppage, such as to recover a car, for some reason, tracks are evolving, they're changing literally by the second. And when a driver goes into the pits and he's gone in slowly because of a red flag, then you've got to go back out again, and you think the grip levels are not quite the same. What's happened to my balance? Most of it's in your head, but it just takes one more lap just to reassure yourself that your car hasn't changed.
So towards the line comes Thomas Drouet. But yes, as he, oops, another Mercedes, is it? That's gone rally crossing. No, it's an Audi this time, and that's out of the car collection squad, and that's Luca Giotto, who runs way, way wide coming into shot and keeps on running wide.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's a lucky getaway then away, because, well, again, if the grass had been wet, as opposed to what it is right now, it is absolutely bone dry. That could have been an unfortunate incident.
Now we are starting to see some greens. Ben Barker being one of them in sectors, Jules Gounon being another. So with just under 6 minutes to go, there's Ben Barker, number 78, the Barwell Lamborghini. Quite what happens for the rest of the day is an unknown, because Alex Malikin is still not feeling very well with a temperature. And so they're going to have to make a call before qualifying. Now, we did have it last year from memory that, I think it was Barwell again, they had a driver who needed to withdraw from an event, and therefore they withdrew the car. Whether there's a plan B, I'm really not sure at the moment. So I think they're rather hoping that Alex is going to be fit and well. But whether the regulations under force majeure would allow Ben Barker to go solo with an extra penalty, I need to go and research.
It would be a great shame if there was, I mean, Ben Barker arguably could take part in one of the sprint events, but that's, I don't know, it's up to the interpretation of the regulations and how it might be interpreted. Certainly force majeure would be given great consideration.
But to balance it, he might have to serve a pit stop at a given time, for example. Anyway, we'll worry about that if it is required. Right now, Ben is really pressing on. Comes up through Surtees, he's on the power. And Ben Barker, 5th fastest now. So for somebody that's a Porsche specialist and he's having to adapt to a rather different feeling GT3 race car, he's doing a really good job here.
Impressive, yeah. I mean, the Lamborghini is as different to a Porsche as you could probably think about. In the meantime, just looking further up the timing and scoring, Raffaele Marcello, I was going to say, is still in the pit lane, but has he actually now gone back out on
yes,
track?
He has. And Jules Gounon has just gone second.
Yeah.
1:22.104. So that means that the car is quicker than it was this morning. It's 2:10 still between Marcello and Gounon, but again, it's looking good for Mercedes up at the pointy end right now.
Yeah, and that's roughly in the same zone they were this morning. There was about a few thousandths of a second difference between this morning and this afternoon, but it's got those two Mercedes, Akodis in 1 and 2 right now, and the nearest challenger is Simon Gachet, who's a further, 3/10 behind Raffaele Marcello, but only 97 thousandths behind Jules Gounon.
Gachet having taken over from Christopher Hauser as their Klaus Battler, the Austrian driver, is up to 16th, but the Porsche's really struggling here.
Doesn't get into Druids, it can't get the nose to turn in. Runs again wide coming through the exit of Graham Hill Bend now into Surtees. So whether this is a combination of a tyre, car balance, whatever it is, it's stopping this car running at what I would consider its more natural overall competitive position.
And that doesn't bode well at Sky Tempesta, does it? With the car in the pit lane, Eddie Cheever and Chris Froggatt back into the garage. Bonnet is up. Remember, it was gearbox issues in the first session. Eddie Cheever has brought it in, and not a happy man at all, because the car is still not performing and it is costing them track time that they can ill afford to give away.
And you can hear Eddie Cheever's hands were expressing precisely his emotions. And this is not what I suspect Sky Tempesta, when they made the transition from Ferrari to Mercedes, would expect.
So the Grupper M team goes to work. Big frustration. Again, Raffaele Marcello, every time you see him at Sheen Curve, there's dust behind him, so you know he's running out wide. Comes down through Clark Curve. He's going to get back onto the loud pedal. Sends it up towards the line. But as far as Marcello is concerned, this is a non-lap, really, because he's not been improving in either of the sectors. He's just out on track, really, but remains the benchmark driver. That was a 24.2, so a gentle-ish lap by his standards.
Yes, and one's assuming that he's not on a brand new set of tyres, because if he had been, his first flying lap would be arguably the best he could produce. So with what we've got, just over a minute and a half remaining, he can complete this lap, and he might be able to do one further lap, should be able to do one further lap, should he so choose.
Traffic permitting as well. We've got another improvement from Andrea Bertolini down in Pro-Am, in which at the moment Ben Barker is the fastest, but he's very much the pro, and Am hasn't really got into that car today yet. Marcello is again down in sector 1. He'll squeeze one more lap out of the session. Valentino Rossi's time now drops him to 9th, or in fact Fred Verviche's time drops him to 9th, as Ben Barker comes up to the line. Now the way that Ben is going with another 2 personal bests, this is a really good effort. As I say, he's a pro, but Ben goes up to 6th fastest as he breaks the beam, and that was a 1:22.288. So Ben Barker making people sit up and take notice here.
Good effort indeed by Ben Barker, and it's a big step up.
Yeah.
Done a very, very solid job.
Mark needs to be on the phone, doesn't he, to try and get somebody on standby in case Alex Malikin can't drive, because it would be a real waste if that car weren't able to carry on in the weekend. Adam Ballon is the AM, effectively, who drives for Barwell in British GT. I wonder if he's busy. There is the fastest car of the session, and the flag will greet him this time. So Raffaele Marcello underlines the Mercedes strength around Brands Hatch once again.
So I have to wait for the first sector time to give us an indication as to whether this is just another metronomic lap from the Italian, or actually there's real pace behind the wheel, and it looks more metronomic to me, as Timo Boguslawski is co-driver with Raffaele Marcello this weekend. So anything purple? No. 26.4 in that first sector, so no, there's nothing spectacular going to come from the 89 Mercedes. As
oops.
Oh, and the Porsche off in the grass up at
that's Battler,
Sheen.
isn't it? Yeah, and he did this, John. A long way off, ploughs through, but Klaus Bachler thankfully didn't do any serious damage when it helped the splitter.
Again, that's a part of the racetrack that's been resurfaced, so is that why drivers are getting caught out? They're misjudging the grip available, or just being too ambitious, thinking there's more grip than they're finding?
Possibly so. Checkered flag is out then, and the session then at an end is pre-qualifying. So the next time the cars are on track, it will be to determine the grid. For the 2 races, it's 1 driver, 1 session, of course, and therefore you qualify for the race that you will start. It takes your time. This is Andrea Bertolini, who is going to end up 4th in Pro-Am behind Patrick Krupinski. Comes towards the timing line, goes through, 23rd fastest at the end of the session in this car that he shares with Louis Machiels. So others don't take the flag on the track, they take it in the pit lane and therefore save themselves a little bit of time, and also can usefully do a practice pit stop while they are in the pit road. And Klaus Bachler brings his garden with him from Sheen Curve. So there's gravel, there's the grass as well, and he's now got some explaining to do as he tells Giorgio Roda exactly what happened there. But right now, you've got to put your money, I would have thought, on Mercedes, at least for 1 win, because they are just looking mighty.
Yes, and I mean, I don't think it's any particular surprise to see the 89 Mercedes leading the charge, but what is impressive is the 88 with Jim Plough behind the wheel is a close second.
So it is Audi's 3rd and 4th and 5th this time, but Raffaele Marciello ahead of Jules Gounod with Christopher Hauser, Dries Van Voor and then Patrick Niederhauser next. Ben Barker, solo effort, brilliant stuff to be 6th ahead of Pierre-Alexandre Jean, and a good 8th going under the radar a bit, Nicolas Bart and Gilles Magnus ahead of Fred Verviche with Valentino Rossi putting the car in the gravel, and then Mathieu Drudi and Luca Giotto rounding out the top 10. Best Pro-Am, Ben Barker, and the best of the silvers, Pierre-Alexandre Jean's Ferrari. At the foot of the times is the number 18, he's at Tutumlu Gerhard Verraza Lamborghini. Sky Tempesta still in a bit of strife, and Hugo Delacour learning about Brands Hatch in the AF Corsa Ferrari that he shares with Cedric Spiratuoli, and there is more to come, I'm sure, from many of them when we get to qualifying, in which they should just about get 2 runs. The stewards are going to be busy because the Weerts Vanthoor Audi has been reported to them, but at the moment it's a pretty happy Raffaele Marciello that has proved once more that he is the star turn, and fastest by only 0.2 of a second, but fastest nonetheless. So there is Raffaele Marciello, he is the fastest, and we'll talk about that lap, talk about that session with him and Gemma.
Raffaele, setting the bar for the weekend, and you're looking very relaxed about it too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just pre-practice still, so there is a bit to do, but I mean, the car felt good as last year, so we'll see.
The whole team seems good. Akadis seem very, very strong.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I mean, last year we were quite strong, so I don't see why this year we cannot repeat last year. And I mean, car is feeling quite good, Timur is doing good, so we'll see.
Nice to see the hair matches the car again.
Yeah, we'll see.
Thanks a lot. Have a good weekend.
Pretty good so far, isn't it? Fastest in the 2 sessions. Great start to the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a laconic guy. He just gets into the car, he drives the wheels off and he steps out of the car. You know, it just makes it seem as if it's just, well, not quite a day job, but makes it look very, very easy, and really very much now on top of his game as one of the leading, if not right now, you could say the leading GT3 driver, certainly in the categories, the Fanatec GT Sprint events powered by AWS. Ticks all the boxes.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Good to see more McLarens. You got the JP Motorsport car this year. So there is Patrick Koprinski's and Christian Klein's entry. So that is the end of GT activity for the moment. But qualifying will be coming up at the towards the end of the afternoon. 20 minutes with that 10-minute break between the 2 elements of it as you determine the grids for each of this weekend's 2 races. Brands Hatch is a sports car GT fans' paradise this weekend, because you've got races this weekend also from the Porsche Club of Great Britain, from the GT Cup. There are lots of Caterham races as well to keep people entertained, but it is going to be at 10 minutes to 4 that the cars are back on track for qualifying.
I tell you what, apart from mini racing, which is just mind-boggling.
Yes.
The next most entertaining form of motorsport is Caterham, because the cars are just brilliant to drive, and they move around and they slide and they look spectacular, and it's so competitive.
Yeah. 25-minute races as well for them, so bags can happen. Anyway, let's hear from the fastest of the Audi drivers out of that last session, because Christopher Haase got number 11 to third quickest.
Christopher, all smiles, and rightly so. Things are looking strong.
Well, yeah, this was definitely a good session for us. We finished P3, which is definitely a good result, but it's called pre-qualifying, and later on is the real job that has to be done. This is the proper qualifying, so we have to focus ourselves, because to repeat this will be definitely a different story.
Earlier on, we saw the car stop on track at the session this morning. Why was that?
Yeah, we had a little issue. So
What was the issue?
so I couldn't go back to the box. I still don't know, but for sure my engineers, they know what happened.
You're not giving anything away there.
Well, that's sometimes like this.
Okay, well, certainly whatever the issue was seems to have been cleared up, and it's looking good for the weekend. Thank you very much, Christopher.
Thank you, Tata.
Yes, if the issue has gone away, maybe more things were put in it to prevent the issue from happening again. Anyway, Christopher Haase not giving too much away, third fastest. And let's look back at the highlights then of pre-qualifying, which began with drivers doing their exercises to get into the car. Ben Barker took 78 out on track, which was the Barwell Lamborghini, and there was plenty of scrapping for track position amongst the Audis particularly, but it was a Mercedes session. We had this drama from Casper Stevenson, who looped it coming out of Hawthorne. Thankfully didn't hit anything or anybody and was able to rejoin. And we also had a number of Audis exploring the outer reaches as well, none more so than Valentino Rossi once he was behind the wheel. But first of all, we had a red flag after Nicholas Schurl went off pretty spectacularly at Paddock Hill Bend, cue everybody into the pits, and then out they went once more. Driver changes for some, and others also making a bit of a hash of the exit of Sheen, including the Delacour Ferrari on the grass. Charles Witts and Dries Van Thorp finding a bit of time in number 32. Jim Clark finding the gravel in number 88. Fred Verlies had a word with Valentino Rossi, sent him out, as also pressing on was Patrick Niederhauser in the Santalot number 25 Audi, which would end the session 5th. This car, number 32, would be 4th, and 46 with Valentino Rossi at the wheel was in the gravel, and it would end the session 9th as a very frustrated Valentino had to wait to be retrieved. That was another red flag, and it meant that when people went back out, the road was busy, and it was only really Ben Barker that was able to make progress, pushing that car up to 6th in the times. A very frustrated Eddie Cheever penultimate, as the Sky Tempest Mercedes still does not want to play ball. Raffaele Marciello then, despite Klaus Bachler going wide, didn't affect matters for the Italian driver. He was fastest at the end of the session and goes into qualifying in good form for 10 minutes to 4.